She gave her virginity to save a dying homeless man, unaware he was a billionaire heir. Season 2 and 3. The city had begun to whisper again. Though Malik and Imani's wedding had silenced gossip for a time, scandal had a way of resurfacing, like oil floating back to the top of water, and this time the shadows returning were darker than ever. Veronica Carter walked the streets with hollow eyes and trembling hands. Once the queen of her neighborhood, draped in jewels and perfumes, she now wrapped herself in a torn coat she'd scavenged from a donation bin. She had been homeless for months, surviving on pride and bitterness, but pride had its limits, and bitterness had no roof. Tonight she stood across from the Harrington estate, staring up at the glowing mansion like it was heaven itself. Her lips twisted. Living in the palace while I freeze on the streets? No, Imani. No, Malik. You think you've won, but this game isn't finished. She turned away, her heels clicking against the wet pavement. In the shadows, a man watched her. A man whose dreadlocks hung loose, his brown eyes, hollow but burning. Tyrone Carter. Prison had not broken him. Instead, it had sharpened him into something dangerous. Inside his cell, weeks earlier, Tyrone had begun whispering to the guards, trading favors, promising riches once he was free. One guard had listened, and now Tyrone's escape plan was in motion. "I'll take back what's mine," Tyrone muttered into the dark, clenching his fists. "Imani was always mine." But inside the Harrington mansion, all was warmth and light. Malik and Imani had just returned from their honeymoon in the Caribbean. Their laughter still lingered in the air, their love still glowing fresh. Imani twirled across the bedroom floor, still in her silk robe, her curls bouncing freely. "I never thought I'd see water that blue," she said, smiling up at Malik. "I felt like I was in another world." Malik smiled, pulling her close. "You are in another world now. A world where no one can hurt you." But before she could answer, Malik's phone buzzed. His smile faltered as he glanced at the screen. "What is it?" Imani asked, reading the tension in his face. "It's a legal notice," Malik said slowly, his tone growing hard. "My inheritance is being contested." Imani blinked. "Contested? By who?" Before he could respond, Angela entered the room, her silver-streaked locks tied elegantly, her face set in quiet strength. She looked at them both with gravity. "By Malik's cousins," she answered. "They've been waiting for this moment. They want to strip you of the empire, Malik, and they won't stop at you. They'll go after Imani too. Be ready." Imani's heart tightened, but she nodded. She was no longer the timid girl who had once begged for scraps of kindness. She was Malik's wife now, and she would face whatever storm came. Later that week, at the soup kitchen, where Imani insisted on continuing her volunteer work, she ladled stew into bowls with a peaceful smile. She was determined not to let Malik's battles harden her compassion. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw a woman in line, frail, wrapped in a scarf, eyes cast down. Something about her presence tugged at Imani. She set the bowl aside and stepped closer. "Here, sister," Imani said gently, handing her the food. The woman looked up briefly. The face was thinner, older, worn by hardship, but Imani's breath caught. "Janelle," she whispered. Her stepsister's eyes filled with shame as she pulled the scarf tighter around her head. Without a word, she turned and fled the line, vanishing into the cold night. Imani stood frozen, the bowl of stew cooling in her hand. The past had returned. Not just Veronica, not just Tyrone, but Janelle too. The shadows were gathering again, and this time they were circling closer. The Harrington estate was unusually tense that morning. Malik sat at the head of the long mahogany dining table, his jaw tight as his lawyers presented the case files. Imani poured herself a cup of tea, listening carefully, though she felt the weight of every word press against her chest. "Darius Harrington," the lawyer said flatly, sliding a thick folder across the table. "Your cousin. He's filed a petition to contest your inheritance. His claim is simple. You're unfit to manage the empire, and the marriage to your wife is proof of your poor judgment." Imani's hand froze on her cup. Malik's eyes narrowed. "My wife is my strength," Malik snapped, "not a liability." Angela, seated gracefully beside them, spoke with measured calm. "Darius has always been ambitious. He was bitter when your father overlooked him. And now he sees Imani as the perfect weapon to strike at your heart." Imani's chest tightened. She'd been judged before, by Veronica, by Janelle, by society women who sneered at her second-hand dresses. But the Harrington cousins were on another level, billionaire heirs with sharpened tongues and endless resources. Later that day, Malik and Imani were forced to attend a shareholders' luncheon at one of the city's most opulent hotels. Chandeliers glittered like fallen stars, and the room was full of men and women in sleek suits and diamond-encrusted gowns. Imani walked at Malik's side, her head held high, though whispers rippled in their wake. And then he appeared, Darius Harrington. He was Malik's age but slimmer, with amber-brown skin, neatly trimmed beard, and eyes that gleamed with arrogance. He wore a custom-tailored suit that seemed designed to scream wealth and entitlement. His smile was cold as he stepped into their path. "Malik," he drawled, his voice smooth as silk but sharp as a blade. "And the famous wife. Tell me, cousin, how does it feel parading your charity project in front of the board?" Gasps rippled through the guests. Imani felt her face flush, but before she could speak, Malik stepped forward. "Careful, Darius," Malik said evenly. "My wife has more dignity in her kindness than you'll ever have in your bank account." The room stilled. Darius chuckled, but the laughter didn't reach his eyes. "Dignity won't save you when the truth comes out," he whispered, leaning close enough that only Malik could hear. "Your empire isn't as secure as you think, and neither is your wife." Imani saw the shadow pass over Malik's face. She gripped his hand, silently reminding him she was there. Across the room, a familiar figure lingered in the background. Veronica. She wasn't in rags tonight. She had managed to borrow or steal a decent dress, but her eyes were as poisonous as ever. She and Darius exchanged a fleeting glance, and Imani's stomach dropped. They were working together. That evening, back at the mansion, Imani stood on the balcony, staring out at the glittering city lights. Malik joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "I'm sorry you had to endure that," he murmured. Imani leaned against him, her voice quiet but steady. "I can handle Darius. I've faced worse." Malik kissed her forehead, pride swelling in his chest. "You're stronger than you know." But deep down, both of them understood. This was no ordinary family quarrel. Darius wasn't just challenging Malik's inheritance. He was trying to tear apart the foundation of their love. And now that Veronica had aligned herself with him, the war ahead would be unlike anything they had faced before. The Harrington cousins were drawing battle lines, and Imani knew the target painted on her back was brighter than ever. The headlines hit like daggers. "Heiress, wife, or hustler? Dark secrets of Imani Carter Harrington," blared across the morning newsstands. Malik slammed the newspaper onto the marble countertop, his jaw tight, fury radiating from every line of his body. Imani stood frozen, her heart sinking as she caught sight of the grainy photo beneath the headline. It was her, years ago, volunteering at the soup kitchen, laughing with one of the older men she used to serve. The picture had been twisted into something ugly. "This is Veronica's doing," Malik growled. "She's feeding them lies." Angela, seated calmly in the kitchen, adjusted her reading glasses. "And Darius's hand is in this too. He wants the board to believe Malik married a woman with questionable morals. If he convinces them, Malik, they could strip you of power." Imani's throat tightened. "But it's all lies. Can't people see that?" Angela gave her a sad smile. "In this world, child, lies travel faster than truth." Later that evening, Malik and Imani were obligated to attend the Harrington Foundation Gala, an event streamed live, full of cameras and critics. Imani dressed in an elegant emerald gown Malik had gifted her, her curls pinned back with delicate jeweled combs. But as she stepped into the ballroom, the air shifted. The room stilled, eyes darting toward her. Whispers rose like smoke. "Is that her? They say she was nothing more than a... I heard she trapped him into marriage." Each murmur stabbed deeper. Imani held her chin high, but inside her chest ached. Malik gripped her hand firmly, his touch saying what words couldn't. "I'm with you." But then, Darius struck. As Malik mingled with investors, Darius sauntered over to Imani, wineglass in hand. His smile was sharp, his tone dripping mockery. "Imani, darling, I must admit, you clean up beautifully. Hard to believe you're the same girl people are whispering about. Tell me, do you ever miss the simpler life?" Gasps fluttered around them. Imani's cheeks burned, but before she could answer, Malik returned. His glare could have cut steel. "Back away, Darius," Malik said, his voice low but dangerous, "or I'll forget we share blood." Darius smirked and leaned in close, speaking so only Malik and Imani could hear. "Careful, cousin. Every empire has cracks, and I've only just begun." With that, he melted back into the crowd, his laughter echoing behind him. The night spiraled further. A tabloid journalist, bought by Veronica, cornered Imani near the restrooms, shoving a recorder in her face. "Mrs. Harrington, is it true you once had a benefactor who paid your way? Some say you were compensated for companionship. Care to comment?" Imani's heart nearly stopped. The cruel twist of her sacrifice, the secret she and Malik had buried, was being dragged toward the light. Malik appeared instantly, pulling Imani protectively to his side. "No comment," he snapped, his voice like thunder. He guided her away, but the damage was already done. Cameras had captured the exchange, and by morning the internet would be buzzing. That night, back at the mansion, Imani collapsed onto the bed, tears brimming. "Malik, they're trying to destroy me, destroy us." Malik knelt before her, taking her trembling hands into his. His eyes softened, but his voice was fierce. "Listen to me. You are my wife, my partner. I don't care what lies they spread. I know your heart, and I will protect you with everything I have." Still, as he held her close, his jaw clenched with unspoken fear. For the first time since their marriage, Malik wondered if the truth of how he and Imani began, that brutal night of sacrifice, would come crashing into the open. And somewhere in the city, Veronica raised a glass of cheap wine, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. The trap was set. The lies were spreading, and soon, she believed, Imani would be crushed under their weight. The morning sun spilled into the Harrington mansion, but it brought no warmth. Imani sat at the breakfast table, staring at the untouched plate of fruit before her. The scandalous headlines from the previous week still lingered in her mind, poisoning her peace. Malik was on the phone with his lawyers, pacing the length of the dining room. His voice was low, but sharp enough for her to catch fragments. "Forgery, defamation. We'll shut this down before it grows." Imani's chest tightened. "Forgery?" She looked up just as Malik hung up, his face grave. "What now?" she asked quietly. He slid a folder across the table toward her. Imani opened it and nearly dropped it from her trembling hands. Inside were documents, old hotel receipts, fabricated love letters. even staged photographs of a woman who looked eerily like her, wrapped in another man's arms. Across the top, in bold red letters, it read, Mistress Files, Imani Carter Harrington. "They're saying you lived as a man's mistress before me," Malik said, his voice bitter, "that you trapped me into marriage to escape that life." Imani's eyes filled with tears. "But it's all lies. Malik, I've never—" He reached across the table, cupping her cheek gently. "I know, love, I know. But Darius and Veronica are determined. They've planted this story, and the board is already whispering, if they believe it." His words trailed off, but Imani didn't need to hear the rest. If the Harrington board believed the lies, Malik could lose his position, and she would be branded a fraud forever. That afternoon, the Harrington Foundation hosted a press conference to address the rumors. Malik insisted on standing by Imani's side, his hand firmly in hers as cameras flashed like lightning. The room buzzed with journalists, their eyes hungry for scandal. "Mr. Harrington," one reporter called out, "how do you respond to the document suggesting your wife was living as another man's mistress before you?" Malik's jaw tightened, but his voice was steady. "My wife is not defined by slander. These so-called documents are nothing but fabrications. Imani Carter Harrington is the most honorable woman I've ever known. Anyone who says otherwise is either blind or bought." The reporters shouted more questions, flashes blinding them. But Imani stood still, her chin lifted, forcing her tears back. Malik's words gave her strength, yet her stomach churned with dread. Across the room, standing just beyond the crowd, Veronica smirked in satisfaction. Draped in a cheap but flashy fur coat, she whispered something to the man beside her. Darius Harrington. He looked sharp, smug, his hand resting casually on his cane, as though this was all a game. "Let them struggle," Veronica hissed. "The more they deny it, the more the world will believe it." Darius's lips curved into a cruel smile. "And soon, Malik will lose everything. He'll learn what it feels like to crawl." Later that evening, after the conference, Malik and Imani retreated to the privacy of their bedroom. Imani removed her jewelry with trembling hands, staring into the mirror at the reflection of a woman she barely recognized. "They'll never stop, Malik," she whispered. "First, I was too poor. Now I'm accused of being a mistress. What will they invent next?" Malik stepped behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. His reflection met hers in the mirror, his eyes fierce. "Let them invent. Let them twist. The truth always outlives the lie, and when it does, they'll be the ones crawling." Imani rested her head against his chest, her eyes closing as she allowed his strength to anchor her. But deep inside, she felt the storm gathering, stronger than ever. Because if Veronica and Darius were willing to stoop this low, she knew the worst was still yet to come. The storm arrived on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Imani had just finished reviewing schedules for the Harrington Foundation's health outreach program when the security guard approached her office door, his face pale. "Mrs. Harrington, there's a visitor." She looked up from her desk, brows furrowed. A visitor, without an appointment. The guard shifted uneasily. "It's Tyrone Carter." Her heart plummeted. Tyrone, her stepbrother. The same man who had once cornered her in the shadows, who had blackmailed her, who had been dragged away in handcuffs after Malik exposed his crimes. He wasn't supposed to see daylight for years. Before she could respond, a tall, broad-shouldered figure stepped into the doorway. Tyrone. His brown skin gleamed with health, his locks tied back neatly. He wore a cheap suit, but his grin carried arrogance as if he had never been disgraced. "Hello, little sister," he drawled. Imani's breath caught in her throat. How are you free?" "Appeal," he said with a shrug, stepping further into the room. "New evidence. Overturned charges. Didn't you hear? I'm a free man now. Her blood ran cold. New evidence? No. She knew a Harrington cousin's hand was behind this. Tyrone leaned against her desk, far too close. I missed you, Imani. You've been living the dream, huh? Mansions, diamonds, your own security detail. Not bad for the girl who used to scrub dishes. Imani stood, putting distance between them. What do you want, Tyrone? His grin widened. What I've always wanted. You. Her stomach turned. Stay away from me. Tyrone laughed, low and dark. Relax, I'm not here to hurt you. Not yet. I'm here to remind you that secrets don't stay buried forever. How do you think Malik would react if the world knew what you gave up to save him that night? Imani froze. The sacrifice. The terrible bargain she had made. Tyrone's eyes glittered with malice. He hadn't forgotten. Before she could speak, the office door burst open. Malik entered, flanked by 2 security guards. His gaze landed on Tyrone, and his whole body tensed like a predator ready to strike. You! Malik growled. Cousin-in-law? Tyrone mocked, spreading his arms wide. Miss me? Malik strode forward, fists clenched. You don't belong here. Guards, escort him out. The guards stepped forward, but Tyrone didn't move. He leaned close to Malik, his voice a poisonous whisper. You can throw me out, but I'll always find my way back, because unlike you, I know her truth, and I'll use it when the time is right. Malik's eyes darkened with fury, but Tyrone only smirked as the guards finally dragged him out. His laughter echoed down the corridor like a curse. When the door slammed shut, Malik turned to Imani. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. He took her in his arms instantly. Imani, don't listen to him. He can't hurt you anymore. But she couldn't stop shaking. Malik, he knows. He still knows. What if he tells? What if... Stop, Malik interrupted firmly, cupping her face so she met his gaze. No man alive will use your past to break you. Not Darius, not Veronica, not Tyrone. They can scream lies from the rooftops, but I will never abandon you. She wanted to believe him. His touch steadied her heart, but Tyrone's words lingered like shadows in her mind. That night, Malik met privately with Angela in the library. He poured himself a glass of brandy, his face grim. Darius and Veronica set this up. They had Tyrone released early. They're building an army against us. Angela's expression was grave. Tyrone is dangerous. His obsession with Imani runs deeper than jealousy. He'll destroy himself if it means taking her down with him. Malik's grip tightened on the glass until his knuckles whitened. Then I'll make sure he never gets close to her again. Not while I'm breathing. But as the firelight flickered across Angela's wise eyes, she shook her head. Malik, this isn't just about protecting Imani. This is about ending the war your family has started. And Tyrone, Veronica, and Darius won't stop until one of you is ruined. Malik's jaw set. He knew she was right. Tyrone's return was not just a threat. It was a declaration. The war for the Harrington Empire and for Imani's soul had only just begun. The night after Tyrone's return, Imani tossed in her sleep, haunted by the sound of his laughter echoing in her ears. She woke before dawn, slipping quietly out of bed so as not to disturb Malik. In the stillness of the Harrington mansion, she wandered into the balcony and let the cool morning air brush against her skin. Yet peace felt far away. She knew Tyrone hadn't come back just to taunt her. He was waiting, watching, ready to pull her secret into the light. By breakfast, the tension had seeped into the air like smoke. Malik read emails at the table, but his eyes were shadowed with thoughts. When Imani placed a gentle hand over his, he closed his laptop and looked at her directly. "We need to talk about Tyrone," he said. She nodded, bracing herself. "He knows too much. If he goes public with what happened that night, the bargain you made with the doctor, the press will tear you apart, and the board will use it to destroy us both." Imani swallowed hard. Hearing it aloud made her chest ache. "I thought we buried that secret, Malik. I thought it would never surface." Malik squeezed her hand. "Secrets don't stay buried, love. Not in this family." Before Imani could answer, Angela entered, carrying a small stack of papers. "I think you both need to see this." She laid the papers on the table. Tabloid clippings, social media posts, rumors spreading like wildfire. One headline blared, "Anonymous source claims Harrington heiress once paid a price too high to save a stranger." Imani's blood went cold. The words weren't explicit, but they hinted, too closely, at the truth. "Veronica," Malik muttered, scanning the pages. "She's feeding Tyrone information, twisting it into gossip. Soon it'll be more than rumors." Angela sighed. "That woman thrives on poison. But Tyrone, he's the dagger. If he confirms these whispers, the world will believe them." Imani stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble. "Then I'll face it," she said, her voice shaking but determined. "If the truth comes out, let it. I'm tired of living in fear." Malik rose too, his expression fierce. "No, Imani. You sacrificed to save my life. No one will turn that into dirt. You deserve to be honored, not humiliated." The moment was interrupted by the buzzing of Malik's phone. He answered sharply. A few seconds later, his face darkened. "What do you mean Tyrone was seen with the doctor? The same one from that night?" Imani froze. Her worst fear was being realized. Tyrone was digging into the one man who could verify everything. Later that day, Malik and Imani met Angela in the library to strategize. Imani paced the floor, her hands twisting together. "If Tyrone gets the doctor to talk, it's over. He knows I was desperate, that I—" Her voice broke. Angela moved to her side, her voice calm. "Child, don't let shame crush you. What you did wasn't sin. It was sacrifice. The world may not understand it, but Malik does, and so do I." Malik added, his voice hard. "That doctor is corrupt. If Tyrone tries to use him, we'll expose his crimes first." But even as Malik spoke with confidence, Imani noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched. He was strong, but even he couldn't control how cruel the world could be with scandal. The following evening, the Harringtons attended a charity banquet downtown. The glittering chandeliers and silk gowns did little to hide the undercurrent of whispers. Imani could feel eyes on her, sharp as knives. At one point, a woman leaned toward another guest and murmured just loud enough, "That's her, the one with the secret." Imani's breath caught, but she forced herself to smile and keep walking. Malik's arm tightened around her waist. Later, as they left the event, Tyrone appeared outside, waiting like a wolf in the dark. He stepped into their path, his grin wicked. "Lovely night, isn't it?" he said smoothly. "Oh, don't look so tense, Imani. I haven't told them yet, but soon. That doctor and I are getting very acquainted. The things he remembers, well, let's just say the world will eat it up." Imani's knees weakened, but Malik stepped forward, his voice a blade. "Touch her name again, Tyrone, and I'll bury you myself." Tyrone only chuckled, eyes glinting. "Careful, cousin. Secrets make the sweetest weapons, and yours is about to bleed." As he walked away, Imani clung to Malik's arm, her chest pounding with dread. The truth she had fought so hard to keep hidden was unraveling, thread by thread. And she knew, once it was exposed, nothing would ever be the same. The Harrington mansion felt like a fortress under siege. Every morning, newspapers landed at the front gate, splashed with new rumors. Every evening, television pundits debated Imani's worthiness to be Malik's wife. And with each passing day, The whispers grew sharper, more venomous. Imani sat at the edge of her bed, scrolling through her phone in disbelief. Headlines screamed at her. Harrington heiress exposed. Anonymous doctor claims Harrington wife paid a dark price. Her stomach twisted as she read the comments below. Strangers tearing apart a story they didn't even know. You see, this is why women like her don't belong in families like ours. One read. She's no angel. She trapped him. Disgrace to the Harrington name. Tears blurred her vision. She dropped the phone, covering her face with trembling hands. The door opened. Malik entered, his broad shoulders taut with fury. He had been meeting with lawyers all morning, his patience wearing thin. When he saw Imani's tear-streaked cheeks, his heart broke all over again. Imani, he said softly, kneeling before her, don't read those things. She shook her head. They're everywhere, Malik. I can't escape them. I thought the world would never know, but now they've made me into something ugly. A woman who traded her dignity for a stranger. Malik took her hands in his, pressing them against his chest. You didn't trade your dignity. You saved a life, mine. And no matter what filth they spread, I will never see you as anything less than my salvation. Her tears fell harder, but she let herself collapse into his arms. For a moment his strength was enough, but peace was short-lived. That afternoon, Malik was summoned to an emergency board meeting at Harrington Enterprises. The conference room was cold, lined with executives in suits that looked more like armor. Darius sat at the head of the table, smirking, while Veronica sat nearby with Janelle at her side, both dressed as if attending a coronation rather than a meeting. One board member cleared his throat. Malik, the scandal surrounding your wife is affecting the company's reputation. Investors are nervous. We need assurance that this baggage won't destroy us. Baggage? Malik repeated, his voice dangerously low. You're talking about my wife. Another member shifted uncomfortably. The Harrington name is more than personal feelings. It is legacy. If Mrs. Harrington's past continues to dominate headlines, we may need to reconsider your fitness as CEO. Malik's jaw clenched. Across the table, Darius leaned back in his chair, savoring every word. The board is right, cousin. Leadership demands respect, and right now, the world doesn't respect your choice. Veronica chimed in sweetly, though her words dripped venom. Perhaps a graceful annulment would solve everything. Free Imani from all this cruelty, and free you from scandal. Malik slammed his fist against the table, startling the room. Listen carefully. I will not divorce my wife. I will not abandon her. And I will not let this family turn love into a liability. If anyone here has a problem with Imani Carter Harrington, you have a problem with me. The room went silent. Darius's smirk faltered, but only slightly. Malik rose, his towering presence filling the space. This meeting is over. Back at home, Imani was waiting, her nerves frayed. When Malik entered, his expression was carved from stone. She rushed to him. What did they say? They want me to leave you, he answered bluntly, her breath caught. And, what did you tell them? He pulled her into his arms, pressing his forehead against hers. That I'd burn Harrington Enterprises to ashes before I ever let you go. Her heart swelled, but fear still lingered. Malik, if they force you out, if you lose everything... Then I lose it, he interrupted fiercely. But I will not lose you. That night, while Malik slept beside her, Imani lay awake, staring into the dark. His love gave her strength, but she couldn't ignore the storm pressing closer. Tyrone still prowled in the shadows. Veronica still schemed with every breath. And the doctor, the only man who knew the full truth, was somewhere out there, waiting to be bought. Imani placed a trembling hand over her chest. The secret she had carried for so long was tearing their lives apart, and though Malik's devotion was unshakable, she feared the breaking point had not yet come. It was coming, and when it did, their love would either shatter or burn brighter than ever. The rain fell in steady sheets the next evening, painting the city in streaks of silver. Imani left the Harrington Foundation late, clutching her umbrella as she hurried to the car Malik had sent for her. The driver had just opened the door when a voice, low and mocking, slithered out of the shadows. "Going somewhere, little sister?" Her chest tightened. Tyrone. He stepped out from under a street lamp, rain slicking his cheap suit, eyes glinting with menace. The driver stiffened, moving to intervene, but Tyrone flashed a smile. "Relax, brother. I just need a word with family." Imani shook her head, her throat dry. "I have nothing to say to you." But before she could step inside the car, Tyrone grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron. "Oh, but I have something to say to you." The driver tried again, but Imani raised her free hand. "It's fine. Give us a minute." Her voice was trembling, but she knew Tyrone. If she resisted too hard, he would only escalate. Reluctantly, the driver backed off a few steps, though his eyes stayed sharp. Tyrone leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. "The doctor and I had a very interesting conversation. He remembers everything about that night. The crying little girl, the desperate bargain, the price you paid. Imagine the headlines if I let that story slip into the right hands." Imani's stomach twisted. "Why are you doing this, Tyrone? Haven't you ruined enough lives?" "Because I want what's mine," he snarled. "You think you're some saint because you married Malik?" "No, you're still the same girl I watched, the one I wanted." "And now?" "You're his queen, his wife, but I know the truth, and unless you give me what I want, I'll make sure the whole world knows it too." Her pulse hammered in her ears. "And what is it you want?" He smiled darkly. "You. Alone. Away from Malik. You'll come to me, or I'll destroy both of you. That's the deal." Imani yanked her wrist free, her voice trembling but fierce. "I will never belong to you, Tyrone. Not now, not ever. If you want to expose me, do it, but you will not break me." For a split second, his grin faltered. Anger flickered in his eyes, raw and dangerous. "We'll see," he hissed. Then he turned, vanishing into the rain, leaving her shaking in the storm. The driver rushed forward, guiding her into the car. Imani sat in silence the entire ride home, her fists clenched, her mind reeling. Tyrone's words echoed in her chest like a curse. When she arrived at the mansion, Malik was waiting in the foyer. One look at her face, and he knew. "What happened?" She broke down then, her body trembling as she told him everything. The threat, the blackmail, the doctor's involvement. Malik's expression darkened with every word, his jaw tightening until she feared he'd shatter his own teeth. "He dared to touch you?" Malik's voice was low, dangerous. "He dared to threaten you?" "Malik, please," Imani whispered. "Don't go after him. That's what he wants. He wants you angry, reckless. He wants this to spiral." Malik pulled her close, kissing her hair. "Imani, he won't win. Tyrone thinks he holds power, but he doesn't know me, and he doesn't understand the strength in you." Angela joined them soon after, summoned by Malik's call. When she heard the story, she closed her eyes, her voice grave. "Tyrone won't stop. He's obsessed, and obsession doesn't reason. We must prepare. The truth may come out, but we can make sure when it does, it's on our terms, not his." Imani looked between them, fear and determination warring in her chest. "But if the world knows, they'll never forgive me. They'll call me names, brand me as something I'm not." Angela cupped her chin gently. "And what are you, child? You are love. You are sacrifice. You are the woman who saved Malik when no one else would. If people cannot see that, let them choke on their blindness. Your worth doesn't come from their approval. Tears welled in Imani's eyes, but she nodded. For the first time since the rumors began, a small spark of defiance lit within her. Tyrone might hold her secret, but he did not own her soul. That night, as she lay in Malik's arms, she whispered to herself, "No more fear, no more chains." But deep down, she knew Tyrone was not finished, and the next strike he made would cut deeper than she could imagine. The storm broke not with thunder, but with headlines. On Monday morning, the Harrington household woke to a nightmare splashed across every screen. News anchors spoke the words Imani had dreaded for years. A source close to the Harrington family confirms that Imani Carter Harrington once made a shocking bargain with a doctor, trading her innocence to save a dying homeless man, who was later revealed to be Malik Harrington himself. Pictures of her flashed across the screen, candid shots leaving charity galas, walking beside Malik, smiling shyly at cameras. Beneath them, cruel captions, "The Virgin's Bargain, from angel to opportunist." Imani dropped her teacup, porcelain shattering against the marble. Her hands shook as the television replayed an interview with the corrupt doctor, his face half-shadowed. She was desperate. She begged me. And yes, she offered her virginity. I didn't force her. It was her choice. Veronica's voice followed soon after, broadcast live from some smug interview chair. I always worried she wasn't the right kind of woman for Malik. And now, well, the world can decide for itself. Imani's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, gasping for breath, shame crashing over her like a tidal wave. Malik rushed to her side, pulling her into his arms. His jaw was stone, his eyes burning with fury. "They're lying!" he hissed. "They're twisting everything!" Imani clutched his shirt, her voice breaking. "It doesn't matter. People will believe it. They'll never see me as more than this scandal." Angela stormed into the room, moments later, newspaper in hand. Her face was grim, but her eyes held fire. "They've gone too far. Tyrone has dragged your name through the mud, child. But remember this, truth may be weaponized, but it cannot erase who you are." But outside the mansion gates, the world was already judging. Reporters swarmed the driveway, microphones in hand. Protesters held signs. "Shame on the Harringtons! Gold digger, not fit to be a wife." Inside, Malik gathered his legal team. "Find that doctor, tear apart his record, every bribe he took, every patient he hurt. I want it all public. And Tyrone, if he thinks he can ruin Imani, I'll bury him in his own sins." Yet even as Malik fought with fire, Imani felt herself shrinking. That evening, she wandered the vast halls alone, her reflection catching in gilded mirrors. The woman staring back seemed like a stranger, the girl who once served soup in a shelter, who once loved quietly in the shadows, was gone. Now the world saw only a scandal. In the library, Angela found her curled into a chair. "You're quiet, child. Too quiet." Imani lifted her tear-streaked face. "What if they're right? What if I don't belong here? Malik could have anyone. Someone untouched. Someone perfect. Instead, he has me. Broken and exposed." Angela knelt beside her, voice steady. "Do you think love chooses the flawless? Love chooses the faithful. And you, Imani, are faithful to the bone. That's why Malik fights for you. That's why he'll never let you go." Before Imani could answer, the library doors slammed open. Malik entered, his expression thunder. "Tyrone just went live. He's giving an interview." The three of them rushed to the television. On the screen, Tyrone sat across from a smirking host, wearing a sharp suit that did nothing to hide the malice in his eyes. "Yes, I know the truth," Tyrone said, his voice smooth as silk. Imani Carter Harrington sold herself that night. And Malik? He was too weak to see he was being manipulated, She wanted to secure a place in his life, and what better way than saving him? Call it charity, call it sacrifice, but I call it exactly what it was: calculated seduction. Imani gasped, pressing a hand to her mouth. Malik's fists clenched at his sides. Tyrone leaned forward, his smile poisonous. And now she sits in the mansion, dripping in wealth and diamonds, while the rest of us are cast aside. You tell me, does that sound like love or ambition? The audience clapped. The host chuckled, and in that moment, Malik's rage boiled over. He hurled the remote across the room, shattering the screen. He thinks he can rewrite history, Malik growled, but I won't let him, not again. That night, as silence settled over the mansion, Malik took Imani's hands in his. We're at war now, but we'll fight it together. Tyrone wants to drag us through hell, but we'll make it out, and when we do, it'll be him who's burned. Imani stared into his eyes, searching for strength. Despite the fear clawing at her chest, she saw it there, unshakable, unyielding. Malik wasn't just her husband, he was her shield, and though the world seemed determined to destroy her, for the first time since the scandal broke, she dared to believe they might survive it. The Harrington mansion had never felt so heavy with silence. After weeks of scandal, betrayal, and blackmail, it seemed as if every corner of the house held the echo of whispers, headlines, and lies. Yet tonight, Malik Harrington was done playing defense. Tonight would be Tyrone's reckoning. Angela sat at the dining table with Imani, holding her hand. Imani's dark eyes were tired, her beauty dimmed only by the weight of shame and exhaustion. Malik entered in a storm-grey suit, jaw locked, his presence commanding the room. They're all gathering tonight, he said flatly. The doctor, the board members, Veronica, Tyrone, every last one of them. They think they've won. He glanced at Imani, his voice softening. But tonight, we end this. Imani hesitated. Malik, if the truth comes out... He cut her off gently. The truth won't break us. Lies will, and I won't let their lies define who you are. Angela squeezed Imani's hand. Child, this is the moment you stop hiding. Shame has no power once you step into the light. The ballroom of the Harrington corporate tower glittered with crystal chandeliers and golden decor. But beneath the shine lay poison, whispers, camera flashes, and the calculating smiles of enemies. Veronica swept in first, draped in emerald silk, her smirk daring anyone to challenge her. Tyrone followed, flanked by bodyguards, his arrogance practically dripping off him. At the center of it all, the corrupt doctor waited, feigning dignity in a pressed suit, though sweat already glistened on his brow. When Malik and Imani entered, the crowd hushed. Imani wore a sleek black gown, her braids pinned into a crown, her every step regal despite the storm raging inside her. Malik's hand never left hers. Ladies and gentlemen, Malik began, his voice sharp and commanding. Tonight you gather to feast on scandal, to watch a woman be torn apart, but you forgot something important. I am Malik Harrington, and I protect what's mine. Gasps rippled. Veronica rolled her eyes, Tyrone smirked, and the doctor cleared his throat nervously. Malik snapped his fingers. The massive screen behind him lit up with documents, records, receipts, testimony. This doctor you hold as a witness, Malik said, his voice echoing. He's taken bribes, he's botched surgeries, he has been sued 5 times for malpractice, and yet he calls himself credible. The crowd murmured, the doctor's face paled. And my dear cousin Tyrone, Malik continued, turning like a predator. You claim to know the truth about my wife, but here is your truth. More files flashed across the screen. Stolen funds, offshore accounts, blackmail notes, even recordings of Tyrone threatening Imani. Gasps filled the air. Tyrone's smile faltered. This is lies, fabrications. Then explain this, Malik said, and the audio began to play. Tyrone's own voice filled the room. You'll come to me, or I'll destroy both of you. That's the deal. The ballroom erupted in chaos. Cameras flashed wildly. Veronica screamed at Tyrone, clawing his arm. You fool! You ruined us! Security swarmed. The doctor tried to escape but was seized. Tyrone lashed out, shoving chairs and screaming, but within minutes police arrived, Malik having arranged everything. Tyrone was dragged away in handcuffs, his shouts echoing down the marble halls. Imani stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes. The crowd that once sneered at her now looked with shock, some even shame. Malik turned to her, his voice low but carrying across the room. Imani Carter Harrington is my wife. She is the reason I breathe. She gave everything, even when the world offered her nothing. And if saving a life is her sin, then she is the most righteous woman here tonight. The applause began softly, then grew, echoing through the ballroom. Reporters shouted questions, but their tone had shifted. No longer mockery, but awe. Veronica tried to slink away, but Angela blocked her path, holding a thick folder. And as for you, Angela said coldly, we've discovered your embezzlement. You won't be living off the Harrington name any longer. Veronica's face crumpled. For the first time, the woman who always stood tall looked small, her wig crooked, her jewels meaningless. She fled as cameras chased her, humiliation her only companion. Later that night, back at the mansion, Imani stood on the balcony overlooking the city lights. Malik came behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. It's over, he whispered. They can't hurt you anymore. Imani leaned into him, her tears falling freely. I thought I lost everything tonight, but instead, I found my voice. He turned her gently, brushing a tear from her cheek. You are my voice, Imani. You are my reason. Don't ever forget that. Angela joined them, smiling warmly. You two have walked through fire. Now let the world see the strength of your love. Imani looked at Malik, her heart swelling. For so long, she had lived in the shadows of fear, of shame, of other people's cruelty. But tonight, standing in the arms of the man she saved, and who saved her in return, she felt reborn. The city stretched out before them, vast, glittering, and filled with possibility. Season 2 closed not with defeat, but with victory. Tyrone in prison, Veronica disgraced, the corrupt doctor silenced, and Imani Carter Harrington finally standing tall, her name cleansed not by lies, but by truth. Together, Malik whispered, pressing his lips to hers, we'll write the rest of our story. And for the first time, Imani believed it. The Harrington boardroom gleamed like a throne room, polished mahogany tables stretching endlessly, portraits of stern ancestors lining the walls, and a chandelier hanging heavy with crystal. Malik Harrington sat at the head of the table for the first time, the weight of legacy pressing against his shoulders. He looked every bit the heir he had been born to be. Broad-shouldered, clean-cut, his dark skin glowing under the cool lights. Yet in the eyes of the men and women before him, he saw only doubt. Mr. Harrington, Darius Kane, the slickest of the board members, leaned forward with a practiced smile. We welcome your enthusiasm, but you must understand, this company is not a playground, it's an empire, and empires demand clear-headed decisions, not distractions. The word distractions was dipped in venom. Malik didn't have to glance at Imani to know who Darius meant, but he did glance anyway. His wife sat elegantly just behind him, radiant in a cream dress that hugged her frame modestly but powerfully. Her braids were pulled back into a neat crown, her brown eyes alive with strength. She said nothing, but her very presence unsettled them. Malik leaned forward. With all due respect, Mr. Kane, Harrington Industries doesn't just belong to boardrooms and balance sheets. It belongs to people, and as long as I lead, those people will be seen, including my wife. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Darius's smile never faltered, but his eyes darkened. After the meeting, whispers followed them down the hallway. Reporters surged like a tide outside the glass doors. Cameras flashed as Malik wrapped a protective arm around Imani, guiding her toward their car. "Mr. Harrington," one shouted, "is it true your marriage is damaging the company's image?" Another yelled, "Mrs. Harrington, some say you're unfit to represent the Harrington name. How do you respond?" Imani froze, the words slicing into her. Malik stopped walking, turned on his heel, and faced the crowd. His deep voice boomed over the chaos. "My wife has more honor in her heart than this entire circus combined. If anyone questions her place beside me, they question me. And let me make this clear. I am Harrington Industries. That will be all." The flashes continued, but the reporter's tone shifted, awe creeping into their frenzy. Malik's defiance only added to his aura. That evening, a gala was held in Malik's honor to celebrate his official inheritance of the Harrington Empire. The ballroom glowed with gold and silver, violins humming as the city's elite gathered in jeweled gowns and tailored suits. Imani walked in at his side, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. The girl once mocked as too plain, too poor, now stood tall as the wife of the Empire's heir. But not everyone clapped. Across the room, Veronica Carter sipped champagne with a wicked grin. She had clawed her way into the gala, her gown rented, her jewels fake, but her venom was very real. She whispered to a cluster of gossip reporters, her eyes never leaving Imani. "Watch closely," Veronica hissed. "The higher she climbs, the harder she'll fall." And then came the arrival that drew every eye. Naomi Sinclair. She swept in wearing a scarlet gown that seemed to catch fire beneath the chandeliers. Her beauty was sharp, her smile a blade. The daughter of an old money dynasty, Naomi was power-wrapped in silk, ambition in every sway of her hips. She glided straight to Malik, ignoring Imani as if she didn't exist. "Malik Harrington," Naomi purred, extending her hand. "Your father would be proud. The crown suits you." Malik shook her hand, his jaw tightening. "This is my wife, Imani." Naomi turned her gaze at last. Her smile widened, but her eyes dripped with disdain. "So you're the famous Imani. I've heard stories." Imani stood firm, her chin high. "People do love to talk." Naomi's laugh was soft, mocking. "Well, I'm sure you'll adjust quickly. The Harrington name can be heavy for outsiders." The jab stung, but Imani's smile didn't waver. "Good thing I was never afraid of weight. Diamonds are heavy too, aren't they?" The women locked eyes, a silent war igniting between them as Malik placed his hand on Imani's back, proud of her poise. Later, as the orchestra swelled, Naomi lingered near the press, whispering into waiting ears. By midnight, rumors were already swirling, claims that Malik was displeased with his wife, that Imani didn't belong in high society. The headlines the next morning would be cruel. And worse, while Malik danced with Imani, smiling for cameras, his phone buzzed with a message that turned his blood cold. Harrington shipping yard fire. Millions lost, sabotage suspected. Malik tightened his grip on Imani, whispering in her ear. The war's begun. And though she didn't yet know the details, Imani felt it too. The storm was coming. The tabloids erupted the next morning. Glossy covers screamed headlines like "Malik Harrington's marriage on the rocks" and "Who is the girl unworthy of a crown?" Paparazzi snapped pictures of Imani mid-blink, mid-step, twisted into angles that made her look tired, overwhelmed, even small. Imani sat at the breakfast table, staring at the papers. Her hands trembled as she pushed them aside. "They don't even see me, Malik. I'm not a woman to them. I'm just a scandal." Malik reached across the table, covering her hands with his. His voice was low, steady. "Let them talk. Their lies don't change who you are. You are my wife. You are Harrington." Before Imani could answer, Angela Harrington entered the sunlit dining hall, draped in an elegant wrap. She carried her tablet, frowning. "Naomi Sinclair," she said, sliding the screen across the table. "She's behind this. Her PR machine has been feeding the press since last night. Every article sings her praises while tearing you down." Imani's lips pressed tight. "She wants to replace me." Angela's eyes softened. "She wants power. You just happen to be in the way." 2 nights later, Naomi hosted her own gala, this time for charitable causes, though everyone knew it was a display of dominance. The invitations were gilded, the guest list carefully curated. Imani's name was nowhere to be found. Malik's phone buzzed with a reminder from his assistant. "Naomi Sinclair Gala, 7 p.m. Attendance recommended." He frowned. "She didn't invite you?" Imani shrugged, though her heart tightened. "It's fine. I'm used to being overlooked." But Malik shook his head sharply. "Never again. If I go, you go." When they arrived, the ballroom was a portrait of decadence. Gold chandeliers bathed the guests in warm light, and champagne glasses sparkled like jewels. Naomi stood at the top of the staircase in a black sequined gown that dripped confidence, welcoming each guest with the grace of a queen. When she saw Malik, her smile widened, but when she saw Imani at his side, the smile froze, then faltered. "Oh," Naomi said lightly, her voice sugar with poison. "You brought company." "Wife," Malik corrected firmly, kissing Imani's hand for emphasis. The guests gasped at his boldness. Naomi's mask cracked for a split second, but she recovered, laughing airily. "Of course. Welcome, Mrs. Harrington." Throughout the night, Naomi made subtle jabs. She introduced Imani as the girl from nowhere. She compared her gown to something off the rack. She praised Malik for tolerating pressure from all sides. Each word was a blade cloaked in silk, but Imani held her head high, answering with quiet grace. When Naomi mocked her charity work, Imani replied, "The lives I touch may not glitter, but they shine far brighter than jewels." Guests murmured in approval, and Naomi's smile stiffened. Then came the blow no one expected. Darius Kane appeared at Malik's side during a toast. "I'm afraid there's urgent news," he whispered. "The sabotage at Harrington Shipping was no accident, and it's only the beginning." Malik's jaw tightened. The timing was too precise. Naomi's gala, the sabotage, the rumors, it was all connected. As Malik stepped away to take a private call, Imani found herself cornered. "Imani." The voice made her spine stiffen. Janelle Carter. Her stepsister glided into view, her mocha skin gleaming under the chandeliers, her lace front wig flowing in perfect waves. She wore diamonds that shimmered with desperation, clearly borrowed for the occasion. "Janelle," Imani said flatly, "I thought you disappeared after Malik chose me." Janelle smirked. "Disappeared? Please, I was just waiting for the right moment. You didn't really think you'd keep that seat forever, did you? Women like Naomi and I, we were born for this life. You were just lucky." Imani's stomach twisted, but her face stayed calm. "If being born for it means cruelty and greed, then you can have it. I'll keep my dignity." Janelle's eyes flared, but she leaned in closer. "You'll see soon enough, little sister. Crowns are heavy, and when they fall, they crush." As the night drew on, Malik returned, his face shadowed with anger. "It's worse than I thought," he whispered to Imani. "Our empire is under attack from the inside, and I think Naomi's at the center of it." Imani's hand slipped into his. She could feel the tremor beneath his strength, the storm beneath his calm. Naomi raised her glass for a final toast, her eyes locked on Imani. "To power," she declared, her voice ringing through the room. "May it always rest in the hands of those who deserve it." The guests cheered, but Imani heard the threat in every word. She tightened her grip on Malik's hand. Quietly, she whispered, "Then we'll just have to show her who truly deserves it." The boardroom smelled of old wood and older money. Malik Harrington stood at the head of the long mahogany table, his broad shoulders squared, his jaw tight. Across from him lounged Darius Kane, impeccably dressed, his silk tie a splash of arrogance against his chest. The other board members whispered among themselves, but Malik's voice cut through like steel. "Explain to me," Malik demanded, "how Harrington Shipping suffers a sabotage under your watch. Millions lost, contracts jeopardized, and yet you act as though it's a storm that passed in the night." Darius's lips curved into a smug smile. "Calm yourself, Malik. Business always comes with losses. Fires, accidents, setbacks, they're part of the game. Surely you don't believe every shadow is an enemy." Malik leaned forward, his palms flat on the polished table. This wasn't an accident. The timing was too perfect. The fire broke out the same night Naomi Sinclair hosted her gala. Someone wanted to send a message. A murmur rippled through the room. Darius's eyes glinted. "You suspect Naomi. Careful, Malik. Accusing allies can be dangerous." "She's no ally," Malik growled, "and neither are you, if you think I'll sit quietly while this company bleeds." The tension hung thick. The board members exchanged uneasy glances, their loyalty dangling between the two men. Finally, Angela Harrington, dignified and poised, spoke from her seat at the far end. "Malik is right," she said firmly. "This was not coincidence. We built this empire on vigilance, not excuses. If there's sabotage, we root it out, immediately." Her voice carried the weight of history. Even Darius shifted uncomfortably before masking it with another smile. "As you wish," he said smoothly. "But be warned, paranoia can ruin a leader as surely as betrayal." Later that night, Malik stood on the balcony of the Harrington penthouse, staring out at the glittering city. The skyline pulsed with power, but his thoughts churned with suspicion. Imani joined him, draping a soft shawl over her shoulders. She slipped her arm through his, grounding him. "You were fierce in there," she said softly. "But I saw the way Darius looked at you. He's not afraid. That scares me more than anything." Malik exhaled. "He thinks he's untouchable, which means he's hiding something, and I won't stop until I know what." Imani rested her head against his shoulder. "Then you won't fight alone. Whatever this is, we face it together." Her words soothed him, but even as he kissed her forehead, Malik's phone buzzed, he glanced at the screen, and froze. An anonymous message read, "Your father's death wasn't natural. Ask Darius what really happened." The next day, Malik stormed into Darius's office without warning. The sleek glass walls reflected his fury as he slammed the message onto the desk. "What do you know about my father's death?" Malik demanded. Darius raised a brow, feigning innocence. "Your father? Heart attack. Tragic but common enough. Why ask me?" "Because someone thinks you had a hand in it." For the first time, Darius's mask flickered, his jaw tightened, but then he chuckled, low and dangerous. "Careful, Malik. Ghosts are heavy burdens. Your father built this empire with enemies at every corner. If you dig too deep, you might not like what you find." Malik's fists clenched. "If you're hiding the truth, I'll drag it into the light. Harrington Industries doesn't belong to liars and thieves." Darius leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You may sit in your father's seat, but you're still a boy playing king, and boys rarely survive long in a world of wolves." Malik stormed out, his fury boiling. He knew then that Darius was more than a rival. He was a snake, coiled deep within the Empire's heart. That evening, Angela visited Imani in the Harrington Library, where she was quietly sorting through old company records. "You're looking for something, child," Angela said knowingly. Imani glanced up, determination shining in her eyes. "I'm looking for the truth. If Malik's father didn't die naturally, there must be records, whispers, something the board overlooked or buried." Angela smiled faintly. "Good, because Malik will need more than his anger to win this war. He'll need evidence, and evidence is something women of this family have always been better at finding than men." Imani returned her smile, feeling the weight of destiny settle on her shoulders. She wasn't just a bystander anymore. She was part of the fight. Meanwhile, far across the city, Veronica Carter watched the news with delight. The reports were already whispering about Malik's outburst at the board, painting him as unstable and unfit. She sipped cheap wine from a crystal glass she had stolen long ago, her lips curling in satisfaction. "Cracks in the crown," she muttered. "Perfect, just perfect." And in the shadows, Tyrone Carter listened. His eyes burned with obsession as he whispered, "If Malik falls, Imani will be mine." The storm was gathering, and this time, the Harringtons weren't just fighting for love. They were fighting for survival. The fire broke out just after midnight. Imani woke to the blaring of alarms and the acrid smell of smoke seeping under the bedroom door. Her heart thundered as she shook Malik awake. "Malik! Fire!" He was on his feet instantly, throwing open the door to a hallway engulfed in chaos. Flames licked at the walls of the Harrington penthouse, sprinklers hissing uselessly against the inferno. Guards rushed in, ushering them toward the emergency exit. "Get Imani out!" Malik barked, shielding her with his body as falling debris rained down. The couple stumbled into the stairwell, smoke clawing at their lungs. Behind them, the sound of shattering glass echoed like gunfire. By the time they reached the street, the penthouse was an orange blaze against the night sky. Reporters were already gathering, cameras flashing, as if the fire itself had been staged for spectacle. Imani clung to Malik, coughing. "How did it spread so fast? This isn't natural." Malik's eyes burned with fury. "Number, it's sabotage." By dawn, the news was everywhere. Harrington penthouse in flames. Billionaire heir narrowly escapes with wife. Speculation ran rampant. Insurance fraud, negligence, even arson. Malik paced the charred remains later that morning, his fists clenched. Darius Kane arrived on the scene, his immaculate suit untouched by the ash floating in the air. "What a tragedy," Darius said smoothly, surveying the destruction. "So careless of you, Malik, to let your defenses falter." "This wasn't carelessness," Malik snapped. "Someone lit this fire, and I think you know who." Darius smirked. "Accusations again? Perhaps you should focus less on blaming others and more on salvaging what's left of your reputation. The board will want answers." Angela appeared behind Malik, her voice sharp as a blade. "And they'll get them. Truth, not excuses. You might want to remember, Darius, that snakes eventually choke on their own poison." For once, Darius's smile faltered, but he turned and walked away without another word. That night, as Malik and Imani settled temporarily into a Harrington estate outside the city, the tension between them weighed heavy. Imani sat on the bed, her hands gripping the sheets. "Malik, what if this keeps happening? First the sabotage, now the fire. Whoever's behind this isn't going to stop until everything you own is ashes." Malik sat beside her, pulling her close. "Then we fight, brick by brick, lie by lie. They want us scared. They want us divided. I won't give them that satisfaction." But even as he spoke, a shadow of doubt crossed his eyes. Imani saw it. You think there's someone close to you involved. Malik hesitated, then nodded. It spread too quickly, Imani. Someone fed them information about our systems. Someone inside Harrington Industries, or even inside this family. The words cut like glass. Days later, Malik called an emergency board meeting in a temporary office downtown. The boardroom hummed with unease as members whispered behind their folders. Angela sat upright, her presence commanding. Imani remained outside, observing through the glass wall. Malik stood tall. The fire was no accident. This company is under attack, and until we uncover the traitor among us, none of us are safe. Gasps rippled across the room. Some members protested, but Malik silenced them with a glare. I will find out who is betraying us, and when I do, they will answer for it. The jab stung, but Malik didn't flinch. I'm more ready than you'll ever be. And if you have something to confess, Darius, now would be the time. The silence that followed was deafening. Later that evening, Imani met Angela in the library. Angela handed her an old folder, the paper yellowed with age. What is this? Imani asked. Your weapon, Angela replied. Your father-in-law kept records, letters, deals, debts. He didn't trust everyone around him, not even his closest advisors. If his death wasn't natural, the proof may be in here. Imani's fingers trembled as she opened the folder. Inside were names, signatures, secret notes, and one stood out like fire in the dark. Darius Kane. Across town, Veronica Carter poured herself another glass of wine as Tyrone paced the floor. The penthouse is gone, Tyrone sneered. Malik's slipping. This is our chance. Veronica smirked. Patience, Ty. A crown never falls in one blow. But with a little push, his kingdom will crumble, and when it does, Imani will be left with nothing. Tyrone's eyes gleamed with obsession. Nothing but me. The fire had been put out, but its smoke still hung in the air, and Malik and Imani knew this was only the beginning of a far more dangerous blaze. The Harrington estate was quiet, almost too quiet. Imani walked the long marble halls with the old folder pressed tightly against her chest. Each page whispered secrets, but one name screamed louder than the rest. Darius Kane. Angela's words echoed in her mind. This is your weapon. She paused in the study, spreading the papers across the desk. Hidden transactions, suspicious offshore accounts, signatures that should never have existed. All of them pointed toward betrayal, carefully wrapped in the silken charm of Darius Kane. Imani's stomach churned. If Malik saw this, his rage could burn hotter than the fire that had consumed their penthouse. But hiding it from him carried its own risk. She knew her husband well. He despised being kept in the dark. Just as she gathered the papers, the door creaked open. Malik stepped inside, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his face set in stormy determination. His eyes flicked to the desk. What are you doing with my father's records? Imani froze. Angela gave them to me. She thought they might help. Malik crossed the room, his voice low. And did they? Her silence was answer enough. She handed him the page with Darius's signature. Malik's jaw tightened, his hands curling into fists. I knew it, he growled. The fire, the sabotage, even whispers about my father's death. All of it traces back to him. Imani reached for his arm. Malik, wait. You can't just storm at him. He's dangerous. He has allies, power. He pulled away, pacing. And I have the truth. That's all I need. But even as he said it, Imani saw the shadow of doubt flicker in his eyes. Across the city, in a cramped but lavishly decorated apartment, Veronica Carter perched on a velvet chair with a glass of wine, watching Tyrone pace. You're restless, she remarked, her tone mocking. I'm tired of waiting. Tyrone snapped. "We burned his penthouse, rattled his empire, and still he stands. If Darius doesn't finish him, I will." Veronica smirked. "And how do you propose to do that? March into Harrington headquarters and announce you're in love with his wife? Be smart, Ty. If you want Imani, you'll need to let Malik crumble first. Patience. Every king eventually falls, and when he does, the queen is left exposed." Tyrone's eyes darkened. "And that's when I'll take her." The next day, Malik confronted the board. The room bristled with unease as he slapped the documents onto the table. "These records prove years of deceit. Darius Kane has siphoned money from Harrington Industries into his own accounts. He is no partner. He is a parasite." Gasps echoed around the room. Darius, ever composed, leaned back in his chair and let out a low laugh. "Creative accusations, Malik, but forged papers are a weak foundation to stand on. Do you expect these people to believe your pretty little wife dug up the truth no one else could find?" Eyes turned toward Imani, who stood just outside the boardroom doors. Malik followed their gaze, fury flashing. "Leave her out of this. She has more integrity in her smallest act than you've ever had in your entire career." Darius smirked, unbothered. "We'll see if the board agrees. After all, Malik, not everyone is convinced you're fit to lead. Fires, scandals, whispers. Perhaps the problem isn't me. Perhaps it's you." The board murmured, torn between loyalty and fear. Malik's chest tightened. Darius wasn't just attacking his business, he was attacking his credibility. That night, Imani found Malik staring at the city lights from their temporary suite. His shoulders sagged under the weight of betrayal. "They don't trust me," he said bitterly. "They think I'm reckless, unstable. Darius is turning them against me." Imani slipped her arms around his waist, resting her cheek against his back. "Then we make them trust you again. We prove Darius's lies, not just with papers, but with undeniable evidence. We'll find it. Together." Her voice was steady, but in her heart, she knew the fight was only beginning. Darius was cunning, Veronica was lurking, and Tyrone's obsession was growing more dangerous by the day. The web was tightening around them, and if they didn't break free soon, it would strangle them both. The night air was heavy with humidity, pressing against Imani's skin as she left the Harrington estate to clear her head. She had insisted to Malik she just needed a short walk around the grounds, but the truth was she felt suffocated. The weight of lies, betrayal, and constant attacks had settled like a stone in her chest. She moved quietly along the garden path, unaware of the shadow trailing her steps. "Imani." She froze. Tyrone's voice drifted from the darkness, low and intense. He emerged from behind a tree, his dreadlocks tied back, his eyes wild with something that unsettled her more than the fire had. "Tyrone? What are you doing here?" He stepped closer, ignoring the security cameras that dotted the property. "I had to see you. You're trapped here, with him. Don't you see what Malik's world is doing to you? The fire, the lies, the chaos, it's all because of him. He doesn't deserve you." Imani's pulse quickened. "You shouldn't be here. If Malik or security find you, let them!" Tyrone snapped, his voice echoing against the hedges. "I'm not afraid of him. Imani, you know I've always wanted you. I can protect you in ways he never could. I would never lie to you. I would never let you suffer." Her breath caught in her throat, not from temptation but from fear. His gaze was unhinged, his words dripping with obsession. "Tyrone, stop. Whatever you think this is, it's not real. I'm Malik's wife. I chose him. You need to let this go." But Tyrone shook his head violently, stepping closer until the scent of his cologne suffocated her. "Number, you didn't choose him. You were forced into this life. You gave yourself away once to save a man's life, and now you're chained to his wealth. But I see you, Imani. I know your worth. You belong with me." Her hand trembled as she tried to push past him, but he grabbed her wrist. Panic surged through her. "Let me go, Tyrone!" The sharpness of her voice carried across the garden, and footsteps thundered from the estate. Malik appeared with 2 guards, his face a storm. "Tyrone!" Malik's roar cracked the night. "Get your hands off my wife." Tyrone released her but didn't back away. His expression twisted with rage as Malik closed the distance. "You don't deserve her, Malik," Tyrone spat. "You hide behind your money, your titles, but you can't protect her from the truth. You're weak." Malik's fists clenched, every muscle straining to strike, but Imani stepped between them, her voice shaking. "No, Malik, don't. That's what he wants." The guards grabbed Tyrone, dragging him toward the gates. Still, he fought against them, his eyes locked on Imani with a feverish intensity. "This isn't over," he shouted. "You'll see the truth soon enough. You'll come to me." The gates slammed shut behind him, but the echo of his words lingered in the night. Later, in the safety of their suite, Malik paced furiously while Imani sat on the edge of the bed, trying to steady her trembling hands. "He touched you," Malik growled. "He dared to put his hands on you. I should have—" "Malik," she interrupted softly. "If you had, it would have played right into his hands. Tyrone wants chaos. He wants you angry, reckless, so he can use it against you." Malik stopped, looking at her, his fury softening into something heavier. Fear. "What if he tries again? What if next time I'm not there?" Imani stood, moving toward him. She placed her hands against his chest. "Then we'll be ready. We'll tighten security. We'll stay vigilant. But we can't let him drive us apart or make us live in fear." Malik pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she might disappear. "I swear, Imani, I won't let anyone take you from me. Not Tyrone, not Darius, not anyone." But deep in the shadows beyond the Harrington gates, Tyrone was already plotting his next move, and this time he wouldn't be so easily stopped. The gala was supposed to be a symbol of renewal. After the fire and the constant sabotage, Malik had arranged a lavish charity event downtown to remind the world, and the Harrington board, that he was still standing. Cameras would be there, donors, powerful allies. It was a chance to show strength. But for Imani, the glittering chandeliers and echo of music felt more like a battlefield than a ballroom. She could feel eyes on her as she entered at Malik's side, dressed in a deep emerald gown that shimmered against her skin. The whispers trailed behind them, praise mixed with venom. "That's her? The nurse who caught Malik Harrington? Beautiful, but doesn't belong here. She's nothing compared to the women in his world." Imani lifted her chin, refusing to flinch. Malik's hand on her waist was steady, protective, grounding her as they moved through the crowd. "Let them talk," Malik whispered against her ear. "Every step you take in this room proves them wrong." Still, she couldn't shake the unease. Somewhere in this sea of diamonds and champagne, enemies lurked. She didn't have to wait long. Veronica Carter appeared in a gown dripping with sequins, her smile wide and venomous. Tyrone hovered a step behind, dressed sharply but with the restless energy of a predator pacing his cage. "Well, well," Veronica purred as she intercepted them. "Look at the happy couple. Malik, you always did have an eye for strays." Malik's jaw tightened. "Veronica." Imani felt heat crawl up her neck, but she refused to let Veronica see her falter. "Funny," she replied coolly. "I thought strays were the ones who couldn't keep a home without stealing scraps from others." A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Veronica's smile slipped for a moment, then sharpened again. "You have spirit," she said, eyes narrowing, "but spirit won't save you when the truth comes out." Imani's stomach dropped. Veronica was hinting, She knew something, or at least wanted Imani to believe she did. Later in the evening, while Malik was cornered by board members, Imani slipped out onto the balcony to breathe. The night air cooled her skin, but the reprieve didn't last. Tyrone followed. "You looked beautiful tonight," he said softly, almost tenderly, as if their last encounter hadn't ended with him being dragged out by guards. Imani stiffened. "You shouldn't be here. Security." "They won't touch me," Tyrone interrupted. "Not tonight. I just wanted you to see what he's really doing to you. You're not free, Imani. You're chained to him, to his empire, to his lies. With me, you'd be free. No cameras, no board meetings, no masks." She turned to face him, her voice sharp. "Freedom with you is still a prison. I don't want your obsession, Tyrone. I want my husband." His expression twisted, anger breaking through the facade. "You'll regret that," he hissed. "When his empire crumbles, when you're dragged down in his scandals, you'll remember I offered you a way out." He stepped closer, but before he could touch her, Malik appeared in the doorway, his presence like a thunderclap. "Get away from my wife!" The two men locked eyes, tension sparking like live wires. Tyrone smirked, but this time he retreated. "Careful, cousin. The chains you're putting on her might just strangle you instead." Back inside, Malik led Imani away from the crowd, his hand gripping hers tightly. "Why didn't you tell me he was here?" he demanded. His voice wasn't angry at her, but at the situation, at his inability to shield her from Tyrone's relentless intrusion. "I didn't want to ruin tonight for you," Imani admitted. "This gala, it's important." He stopped, cupping her face. "You are more important. No gala, no board, no empire will ever matter more than keeping you safe." Her eyes softened, tears threatening. "Then we fight together, because if they think they can break me, they don't know the strength I've gained by loving you." Malik kissed her forehead, whispering, "Then let them try. We'll break every chain they throw at us." But as the music swelled and the night continued, Veronica and Tyrone watched from the shadows, their eyes gleaming with malice. The war wasn't over. It was only escalating. The morning after the gala, Imani awoke to a flurry of phone calls. Her phone buzzed non-stop, notifications spilling across the screen like a flood. Headlines screamed in bold letters. "Imani Carter's dark secret, the price she paid to save a stranger." Harrington heiress or scandalous pawn? Her chest tightened. The very thing she feared, the sacrifice she had buried in silence, was now plastered across every gossip outlet in the city. Malik stormed into the room, his own phone in hand. His face was thunder, but his voice was careful, almost trembling. "Imani, is it true?" Her lips parted, words caught in her throat. "Malik, please." "I'm not asking to judge you," he said quickly, though his eyes betrayed the storm inside him. "I just need the truth. Did you give yourself to that doctor for me?" The shame she'd carried for so long weighed heavier now. Tears blurred her vision as she nodded, unable to speak. Malik staggered back a step, as though the confirmation physically struck him. His hands trembled, then clenched into fists. "And you didn't tell me? You let me believe." "Because I thought you'd hate me," Imani cried, her voice breaking. "I thought you'd see me as unworthy of your love. I did it to save your life, Malik. I would do it again." The room fell into a heavy silence. Malik turned away, staring out the window at the city skyline. "They're going to use this against us," he muttered. "Darius, Veronica, Tyrone, they'll spin it until it destroys you." "Then let them," she said fiercely, stepping closer. "I won't hide anymore. I carried that secret for too long, and it nearly broke me. But I know who I am, Malik, and I know who we are. They can't destroy that unless we let them." His shoulders sagged, conflict warring in his eyes. Finally, he reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. Then we face it together. Meanwhile, across town, Veronica sat with Darius Kane in his penthouse office. The morning sunlight glinted off his expensive cufflinks as he read the tabloid headlines with a satisfied smile. "You see," Veronica said smugly, "expose a woman's shame, and the empire trembles." Darius leaned back, tapping the paper against his palm. "It's a good move, but it's only the first. Scandal weakens them. But to topple Malik completely, we need to hit where it hurts most. His board's confidence. If they believe he's blinded by a tainted marriage, they'll strip him of power." Veronica smirked. "Leave that to me. The board respects me more than they'll ever respect that girl. I'll make sure they see Imani as the downfall of Harrington." Tyrone, sitting in the corner, finally spoke. "And while you two play with scandals, I'll take care of the rest. Malik might survive a ruined reputation, but he won't survive losing Imani to me." Veronica shot him a warning glance. "Don't get sloppy, Ty. If you go too far, you'll ruin everything." But Tyrone's grin was unshakable. "Sometimes chaos is exactly what we need." Back at the estate, Malik held a press conference. Cameras flashed as reporters hurled questions like daggers. "Mr. Harrington, is it true your wife traded her body for your life? Do you believe she's fit to be the future matriarch of your empire? Are you protecting her or covering for her shame?" Imani stood at his side, her heart pounding, but Malik's voice thundered above the noise. "My wife is the most honorable, selfless woman I've ever known. She made a sacrifice that most people wouldn't even consider, and it saved my life. If you want to call that shameful, then shame on you, because I am alive today because of her courage, and I will stand by her until my last breath." The room erupted, reporters shouting, cameras flashing, but Imani saw the strength in Malik's stance. For the first time, she felt the chains of her secret snapping apart. Still, in the shadows, she knew Veronica and Darius weren't finished. The fracture had been made. The scheme had only begun. The Harrington boardroom had never felt so tense. Men and women in tailored suits sat in a stiff circle, whispers bouncing between them like darts. At the head of the table, Malik Harrington stood tall, his broad shoulders squared, his jaw clenched tight. Beside him, Imani held her ground, though her heart hammered in her chest. She knew this was it, the moment that would decide not just Malik's empire, but their future together. On the far side of the room, Veronica Carter sat smugly, a designer folder in her manicured hands. Tyrone lounged in the chair next to her, his smirk daring Malik to lose control. And just behind them, Darius Kane, the puppet master of this chaos, tapped his pen against the table with deliberate slowness, enjoying the storm he had orchestrated. "Mr. Harrington," one board member began, clearing his throat, "with the latest scandal surrounding your wife, many of us feel your judgment is compromised. Perhaps it is time to consider stepping aside for the stability of the company." Imani's chest tightened, but Malik's voice boomed across the room before she could speak. "My judgment is clearer than ever," he declared. "You all read headlines spun by liars, but let me tell you the truth. The woman you're so quick to condemn is the very reason I stand here alive today. She made a sacrifice none of you would have had the courage to make, and instead of honoring her strength, you let cowards like Veronica and Tyrone feed you poison." Gasps echoed. Veronica's lips curled into a snarl. "Careful, Malik. Insults won't save you from ruin. The world already sees her for what she is. Desperate, unworthy, tainted." "No!" Imani said suddenly, her voice ringing clear. She stepped forward, her posture unshakable. "The world will see me as what I am, a woman who loved enough to risk everything. And unlike you, Veronica, I don't need lies and schemes to feel powerful." The board erupted into murmurs. Some nodded, others frowned, but eyes were turning, away from Veronica's venom and toward Imani's strength. Tyrone slammed his hand on the table, standing with fury. "You think this is over? Imani belongs to me. I'll make sure the world knows every detail of her shame. She'll crawl back to me when Malik's empire crumbles." Before Malik could react, Angela Harrington rose from her seat at the side of the room, her silver-streaked locks glowing under the light. She stepped between Tyrone and Imani, her gaze sharp and unyielding. "No, Tyrone," she said firmly. "You've already exposed yourself. I have here—" She held up a folder. "Records of your theft, your blackmail, your alliances with Cain. Every crime tied neatly with your signature." Shock rippled through the boardroom. Darius shot to his feet, eyes flashing. "This is absurd. Fabricated." "Spare us," Angela cut him off. "The evidence is already with the authorities. Your empire of shadows ends today." The doors burst open as police officers strode inside. Tyrone lunged, shouting Imani's name, but 2 officers grabbed him before he could take another step. His voice cracked, desperation spilling through the rage. "You'll regret this, Imani. You'll regret rejecting me." Veronica tried to rise with dignity, but her trembling hands betrayed her. "This isn't the end," she hissed. The officers didn't give her the chance. She and Tyrone were led out, their protests echoing down the corridor. Darius followed moments later, pale with fury, as his power slipped through his fingers. Silence fell heavy in the boardroom. All eyes turned back to Malik. He reached for Imani's hand and lifted it for all to see. "This company was built on Harrington honor," he said steadily. "And honor means truth, sacrifice, and loyalty. Qualities my wife embodies more than anyone in this room. If you can't respect that, then you don't deserve a seat at this table." The board members bowed their heads. No one dared challenge him again. As Malik and Imani left the building hand in hand, the sunlight broke through the clouds outside, warming their skin. For the first time in months, Imani felt the chains of fear fall away completely. The villains were gone, the empire was safe, and love, tested by fire, remained unshaken. "This isn't the end," Malik whispered to her as cameras flashed in the distance. "It's only the beginning of everything we dreamed of." Imani smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "Then let's live it, together." And as they stepped into the waiting car, the world watching, their story of love and survival closed one chapter and opened the door to the next. "Here comes the end of the story. If I was able to make your day comment, Mr. Hope you made my day."